the tariff tsunami, a voyage through the storm. Imagine the United States as a grand merchant ship, the American enterprise, cutting through the global sea of commerce. For decades, this vessel carried goods to distant ports, but it often returned with fewer treasures than it sent out. Captain Trumpulus, President Trump, stepped up to the helm in early April 2025 and raised a thunderous decree. Every nation trading with the U.S. would now face reciprocal tariffs, from a baseline 10% to as high as 50% on certain imports. It was proclaimed America's Liberation Day from unfair trade. 1. The rationale. Why heave the lead anchors? Closing the trade gap. With a $420 billion goods deficit with China and soaring imbalances worldwide, Captain Trumpulus argued that only by taxing imports could he force trading partners to play fair. Rebuilding the hull. America's manufacturing decks had been rusting, steel mills closed, factories emptied. Tariffs were pitched as the hammer that would drive nails back into the keel of domestic industry. Filling the Treasury's hold. Unlike fleeting tax cuts, these levies promised immediate windfalls, an estimated $100 billion per year to fund infrastructure and reduce deficits. 2. The first waves, immediate ripples. Customs begin collection. On April 5th, U.S. customs agents started hauling in a 10% tariff on all imports, with steeper rates for 57 major partners. Market squall. Global stocks tumbled, with the S&P 500 enduring its worst week since the pandemic as investors braced for a full-blown trade war. Higher prices ashore. Families felt the sting at checkout lanes. Analysts warn the average household will shell out an extra $3,800 annually for everyday goods. Jobs amid the tempest. Surprisingly, the U.S. added 228,000 jobs in March, a sign the labor market still had wind in its sails despite the policy shock. 3. Lessons from the logbook. Historical echoes. Smoot-Hawley's Ghost, 1930. Congress once slapped 60% tariffs on imports, hoping to weather the Great Depression. Instead, global trade collapsed by 2/3, deepening the downturn and igniting retaliations. Reagan's steel tariff, 1983. A 100% levy saved a handful of U.S. mills, but cost 200,000 jobs in downstream industries. A reminder that protection can wound unintended victims. Lincoln's cotton blockade, 1862. Even a wartime embargo on Confederate cotton brought Lancashire's mills to a halt, showing that restricting trade can choke entire economies. The eye of the storm, short-term gains versus long-term risks. 5. Global implications, the wider waters, U.S. consumers and businesses. Brace for pricier electronics, clothes, and furniture. Companies reliant on foreign parts, automakers, tech firms, face squeezed margins and may relocate despite the patriotic rhetoric. Allies and adversaries, Canada, China, and the EU, have already slapped counter-tariffs on American goods. Other nations, India, Brazil, Mexico, eye new trade pacts to dodge U.S. levies. Global growth. Economists warn these measures could tip the world into recession. The IMF now sees a 60% chance of global contraction as markets reel from a $2.5 trillion stock wipeout. 6. Philosophical reflections. Navigating between Scylla and Charybdis. Tariffs promise the security of a sheltered cove, but risk trapping the ship in stagnant waters. They erect walls against unfair competition, yet can isolate an economy from innovation and collaboration. The paradox echoes the old debate between protection and liberty. Do we guard our industries at the cost of consumer choice and global harmony? True prosperity may lie not in erecting higher barriers, but in forging fairer bridges, balancing strength with restraint, sovereignty with solidarity. 7. The horizon. Ahead, what lies beyond the storm? Will the American enterprise emerge with a renewed hull, factories humming and treasuries full? Or will it find itself stranded, sails tattered by retaliatory winds and ballast weighed down by higher living costs? Perhaps the final verdict won't be penned in quarters or stock tickers, but in decades, in whether this bold gambit fosters a resilient, equitable economy, or whether it becomes another cautionary tale in the captain's log. Prepare your compass, steady your hand, and decide. Is this tariff tsunami a tempest that clears the decks, or a maelstrom that sinks the ship of state?